Sunday, October 3rd, 1993. Chaos erupts in the streets as U.S. Special Forces combat Somalian fighters after two U.S. Black Hawk helicopters were shot down in the nation's capital of Mogadishu. While on the mission, they captured Mohamed Farrah Aidid's high-ranking officials who were cringing in the depths of the city. And the U.S. forces, outnumbered and outgunned, were left to fend off the Somali fighters who were firing from every direction while waiting for aid to arrive from miles away, as the planned 30-minute siege turned into 13 hours of hell for the American men trapped inside of Mogadishu. Beginning in the 1980s, the loss of the Ogaden War and a deadly famine destroyed the nation of Somalia, and rebellion against the Barre regime that had become increasingly totalitarian grew throughout the country. This would result in the overthrowing of Barre in 1991 and the violent conflict between rival factions and clans to fill the power vacuum that had been created. And by early 1992, the Somali Civil War had ravaged the nation, causing widespread violence, death, and the destabilization of the country.
In response to the crisis, the United Nations sent troops and relief in efforts to establish peace. In 1992, the UN began the United Nations Operation in Somalia, or UNSOM-1, a peacekeeping mission to give humanitarian aid to civilians and mediate a ceasefire in the civil war. The ceasefire lasted for a while, but tensions between factions grew increasingly worse. By late 1992, some were actively opposing the UN intervention. Among these factions was the Somalia National Alliance, or SNA, which was led by the infamous warlord Mohamed Farrah Aidid. Aidid was the chairman of the United Somali Congress, which was responsible for overthrowing the Barre regime. The SNA was formed in June 1992 and was an alliance between the most powerful factions in the Somali Civil War. In November of 1992, the SNA threatened to become more hostile and demanded the stop of UN peacekeeping efforts. Ignoring this warning, the United States, God bless, sent the Unified Task Force in its individual initiative dubbed Operation Restore Hope. President George H.W. Bush authorized a great number of troops and logistical support to Somalia, displaying a continued U.S. policy of international interventionism, setting the stage for the second phase of the UN intervention. Being established in March of 1993, UNSOM-2 diverged from its predecessor, commencing a nation-building mission focusing on restoring a stable democratic government, establishing civil and political administrations across the war-torn nation. In the same month, the Conference on National Reconciliation in Somalia was held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where 15 Somalian parties agreed to restore peace and democracy. However, by May of 1993, it had become apparent that Mohamed Farrah Aidid's faction would not cooperate with the implementation of the agreement. On June 5, 1993, Aidid's forces attacked UN peacekeepers who were inspecting a weapons stockpile at the Radio Mogadishu station due to rumors that they were trying to shut down the SNA's communications. The death of 24 peacekeepers would begin the fight against the SNA and the hunt for Aidid. In an attempt to take out close advisors of Aidid who had been responsible for the Radio Mogadishu attacks, 6 American Cobra attack helicopters were sent to a gathering of many important Somali figures and clan leaders on July 12th. The helicopters fired into the meeting and killed the SNA advisors. Though the raid was considered a success, it also killed many non-SNA members who were against Aidid who wanted peace, turning many Somalians against the US contingent, as many saw it as an unjustified mass murder in the name of the UN. The city of Mogadishu had become increasingly hostile towards the UN troops, and SNA bombings of US military vehicles killed more American soldiers than ever before. In response, President Bill Clinton approved of Operation Gothic Serpent, deploying Task Force Ranger for the specific purpose of hunting down and capturing Aidid. The task force, consisting of 441 elite Special Force soldiers, including U.S. Army Rangers and Delta Force operators, were known for their ability to handle direct action raids in hostile environments, often capturing and killing high-value targets. On October 3rd, the CIA received intel of a SNA meeting at Olympic Hotel in central Mogadishu, and had planned to send Special Operations Forces led by Michael D. Steele to capture SNA advisors Ahmad Salat Elmi and Abdi Hassan Awale. The area around the hotel had many SNA militia, and to account for this, a column of 12 military vehicles were to take the assault team and the captives back after the mission had been completed. The operation was planned to only take 30 minutes, but no one could have predicted the bloodbath that the mission would turn into. And at 3:32 p.m., the signal to launch the special operation was heard across the radio, calling out the code word, Irene. Immediately after, the force of 160 men and 19 aircraft consisting of Little Bird attack helicopters and Black Hawks left Mogadishu airport, prompting the SNA militia to light fires across the city to warn of the incoming Americans. 10 minutes later, Delta Force soldiers arrive at the Olympic Hotel, and the target SNA officials along with many others are captured by 4:02 p.m. But Somali forces were converging on the area, and due to organization and communication issues, withdrawal of the prisoners would prove to be difficult. At 4:20 p.m., Black Hawk Super 61 is hit by an RPG and was set into an uncontrollable spin before crashing into the street. The two pilots, Clifton P. Wolcott and Donovan Lee Briley, were instantly killed, as they intentionally tilted the helicopter downwards to take all of the impact, protecting the crew. As the helicopter went down, the SNA militia began their attack.
And apparently there was some badass dude holding an AK while riding a cow that was causing hella panic to the Americans. But yeah.
The vehicle convoy carrying the prisoners moved towards the crash site, but as the convoy made a wrong turn, it faced heavy fire from the Somalians, resulting in heavy casualties. Overwhelmed, the lost convoy was forced to abandon rescue efforts and fought its way back to the US base. When rescue efforts seemed futile, combat search and rescue team led by Delta Force Captain Bill Coltrup was dispatched by Super 68 onto the Super 61 crash site, and was successful in moving the wounded soldiers to a collection point under heavy fire. After the first Black Hawk being taken down, Super 64 took on the role of patrolling the city, overseeing the operation, but 60 minutes into its mission, the helicopter's tail rotor was hit by another RPG shot and fell out of the sky. Somali residents cheer as the second Black Hawk is downed and pushed towards the American soldiers. Wanting to protect their brothers, two Delta Force snipers, Randy Sugar and Gary Gordon, request to be inserted at the second crash site, a decision that would cost them their lives. For 10 minutes, Black Hawk Super 62 gave cover to the two men, but a SNA RPG would destroy the engine, forcing the helicopter to make an emergency landing. And as the snipers had no cover, they were overrun by the Somalian mob, being fatally wounded, while Super 64's pilot, Michael Durant, was captured by the SNA forces and taken hostage by Aidid. The two men, who knowingly gave up their lives that day, would later be given the Medal of Honor for their heroic actions. US commanders, desperate to save the American men, sent out Ranger relief columns and 10th Mounted Division's Quick Reaction Force from the airfield base, but was immediately ambushed by SNA forces, resulting in a bloody firefight in which 60,000 rounds of ammunition was fired by American troops in just 30 minutes. And as the night began to set in, 99 Delta Force and Army Rangers were still trapped by the first crash site, fighting in close-quarter battles until finding shelter in 4 civilian homes on Freedom Road. But desperately in need of supplies, Black Hawk Super 66 makes a daring resupply run, dropping water and ammunition for the trapped men despite taking heavy damage. At around 9 p.m., a rescue convoy of 100 vehicles began to organize at the UN base with peacekeeping forces from Pakistan and Malaysia. Under the cover of darkness, the convoy began moving towards the crash site. While the convoy faced Somali resistance, it arrived at the trapped Ranger Force location at 2 a.m. and managed to evacuate all of the remaining American soldiers back to the base by 6:30, finally bringing an end to the hell that began with the incident now known as Black Hawk Down. "19 American men were killed in action in the battle, and 73 were wounded. All received Purple Hearts for their service. On the Somalian side, estimates ranging from 1,000 to 4,000 were injured, and hundreds more were killed." After the Battle of Mogadishu, President Clinton ordered the withdrawal of all US forces and ceased fighting with the SNA. Many Americans were horrified as they saw the US soldiers' dead bodies being televised, being dragged down the streets of Mogadishu, leading to major public outcry in the US. In February 1994, the United Nations passed Resolution 897, calling for the removal of all UN troops in Somalia by March of 1995. To speed up the process, Operation United Shield was approved by Clinton, sending a multinational fleet to bring back the UN troops, and it effectively ended UNSOM 2. Both sides made attempts at de-escalating the tension. The SNA released Sergeant Michael Durant, who they had taken hostage, and in return, the UN released all of the Somali prisoners, including the captured targets of the operation, Elmi and Awala. This event in Somalia also shed light on the SNA's alleged connections to Al-Qaeda. As claimed by Aidid and his men, the SNA had received aid and training from Al-Qaeda. This would be reaffirmed by Osama bin Laden. Additionally, the departure of American presence allowed bin Laden to criticize the United States as if they had great weakness and could be defeated easily. Many high-ranking US government and military officials took responsibility for the tragic event of Mogadishu. Secretary of Defense Les Aspin stepped down for refusing armored support on this mission, and General William F. Garrison took full responsibility for the tactical shortcomings of the mission. The Battle of Mogadishu had a significant impact on the decision-making process of American interventionist policies, as we were more reluctant to get involved in world issues. Such an example would be the United States' decision to not get involved in Rwanda during the Rwandan genocide. It would also forever alter the way in which the public viewed involvement in international conflict. During the Iraq War, after the Battle of Fallujah, when many American soldiers were dragged through the streets, many were also quick to point out how similar it was to the events after Mogadishu. On August 2, 1996, Aidid died of a heart attack following a gunshot wound he attained from fighting with an opposing faction. Even with Aidid dead, the civil war in Somalia continues to this day, and the country is in dire condition.
So apparently, really recently, this month, the Somalian army's been making military gains against the terrorist group Al-Shabaab, and they're doing great right now, so hopefully Somalia gets better. Yeah. Thank you all for sitting through this entire video. I know some of you got bored and are sleeping or watching their phones, but I'd like to thank everyone for making this year really fun, and hope you guys have a great summer. Thanks. Bye. Okay. I should really be studying for physics right now.